Good question. There is a cultural ideological difference, as you suggested. The idea of targets and timetables is it's a quite comfortable concept throughout Europe, I think. There are many parts of the U.S. where it's okay, and certainly among environmental economists, it's okay. But it has been conceived as a sort of backdoor to taxation. And so in the U.S., that then becomes politically almost an anathema. Now, there is this larger question of where else in the world is there interest. Well, as a matter of fact, there's quite a bit of interest. As of right now, today, there are at least 3 or 4 countries, and frankly it changes almost week to week depending on the political situation. But New Zealand, Australia, and China, and Japan all have at least some serious interest in the possibility. They're in different stages of development. It's not clear in any of those cases what will ultimately happen. But it is an idea that has caught on outside Europe in at least some countries.
Reform.
Yeah. A lot of people see climate change mitigation as a cost, and that becomes a kind of insurmountable obstacle for a lot of people in really addressing the problem. For a lot of other people, including people in certain businesses, insurance is perhaps the best example, but it's not the only example by any means. Climate change represents a new kind of risk. And there is a vulnerability to climate change. There is a vulnerability to new regulations that may deal with climate change. So there's actually a whole range of issues that corporations in a whole range of industries have to confront. They may not be confronting them yet, but they will be confronting them. And so the idea that individual corporations need to be public about what their vulnerability is an idea that's starting to catch on in the U.S. There have been some private groups that have actually been pushing this now for more than a decade, but the Securities and Exchange Commission has at least begun to look into the issue. And it is potentially a very powerful, shall we say, attention-getting phenomenon, because we're talking ultimately about the decisions people make to invest not just billions but trillions of dollars over the long term. So this is potentially very important. It's an amazing phenomenon, actually. The specific program is called the Western Climate Initiative. It started in California under Governor Schwarzenegger. The basic concept is that as many as 5 U.S. states, all in the western part of the country, and several Canadian provinces, including in particular Ontario, which is the economically most significant province, and where Toronto in particular is located, that they form a regional entity, a transnational regional entity, that would actually have a whole series of climate change programs. And by the way, there would be at least 2 Mexican states as observers and potentially eventually members. This is in some ways an extraordinary development. There are constitutional issues about whether states could engage in these foreign commercial relationships. I suspect there will be some court cases addressing those issues. Recently, it's run into a little political trouble because New Mexico has sort of dropped out of it. Now, New Mexico. It doesn't, frankly, matter nearly as much as California, obviously. As long as California and 2 or 3 other states, and even only one Canadian province are in it, this is important. It's not just political symbolism. It actually will have real consequences. As Californians like to say, if they were a country, they would be the world's 8th largest economy. So if California decides to do something about climate change, it matters.